Partners International, and we've been doing a lot of work, especially among the South Asian families. So about 580 respondents responded to that survey. 64 of them were percent was male, and the age group was 15 through 65 years. 58% were married, 32% was unmarried, 8% were separated or divorced. So since 2007, when we do marriage counseling and when we do marriage seminars, we focus a lot of things that we say to you based on the marriage survey that we conducted. Because this came from our own folks, and this was an anonymous monkey survey that we conducted. And so we validate a lot of things that we say based on that. Now, for a person, anybody, there is 3 important choices that you would make. 3 important choices. Every young person will make 3 important choices in life. Every believer, every Christian. One is regarding your spouse. One is regarding your education. And the third is regarding ministry. And you might be wondering, why ministry? Because I'm not involved in ministry. So why am I being told that this is one of the 3 major choices in life? Every one of you has a calling or a vocation in your life. Everyone has a calling. And that inner calling is something that you would develop in course of time. How you make that decision is going to be very important in terms of how your whole life plays out. So if you look at your life, you think of your life as 3 major decisions that you made. One is regarding the job that you're going to get. That is the education path that you chose. And the other is the life partner that you made or you picked. And the third is the ministry. So today we will primarily focus on the life partner. How many of you were married with an arranged marriage? Oh my goodness. Anybody who chose their own partner by themselves? You go, just one. One. You know, we got married when I was 21, and my wife was 19, and we were talking about that in Renji's house the other day, last night, and it only took us about 5 minutes to make that decision. Very simply stated, about 5 minutes to make that decision. It's a long story. Because of the brevity of time, I don't want to get into that whole detail. But in 5 minutes, and the 2 questions that we asked each other was that if the girl that I was going to marry, I asked her if she knew Malayalam, and she asked the question back to me if I knew Malayalam. I asked her how much she got for her 10th grade, and she asked the same question back to me. Those were the 2 questions that we asked. We came out of the room, and then I said yes, and she said yes, and then we got married. 3 days later we got engaged, and then 4 days later we got married, and 6 days later she flew back to the United States. And that's basically what my marriage was. It was God's grace that sustained us. 24 years we were God sustained because of the grace of God. It was a poorly informed choice that we made, and it was a good choice that we made, but it was a poorly informed choice. We did not think about it, we did not pray about it, we did not discuss it further. So if those decisions were made in your life, now how does this discussion help you? This discussion is going to help you at least in channelizing your children or your younger brothers or your younger sisters or the people in your church in the proper direction. In Malayalam there is a story. I don't know if those who do not know Malayalam understand this. There was a man who wanted to have a little jackfruit. Everybody knows what jackfruit is, it? Chaka. So he climbed up on a jackfruit tree and he cut down a jackfruit because he wanted to eat jackfruit. And then lo and behold, when the chaka was coming down, the chaka fell on a rabbit that was running. So the chaka fell on the rabbit and the rabbit died. So now, instead of the chaka, he got the chaka and the rabbit. So he had rabbit meat for lunch along with the jackfruit. So now he told one of his friends that he went on a jackfruit tree, he cut down a jackfruit, and then the jackfruit fell on a rabbit, and the rabbit died, and then he got rabbit plus the jackfruit tree. So the story goes like this. The man and the friend who heard this went up on a jackfruit tree and started cutting down every jackfruit that was on the jackfruit tree, thinking that every time that a jackfruit fell, it will fall on a rabbit, and the rabbit will die, and he can get a lot of rabbit meat. So, I mean, I hope you got the moral of the story. Just because it worked in Leslie Verghese' life, just because this poorly informed choice in my life actually worked for 24 years, doesn't mean that that's the way that you have to do it. It just does not mean that that's a way to do it. Marriage is something that you have to go into advisedly, with information, with prayer, with preparation. So that's what we're going to look into. Unable to connect to box. The Word of God says that the gifts of the Holy Spirit primarily is wisdom, knowledge, Holy Spirit anointing, gifts of healing, gifts of tongues. There are so many gifts of the Holy Spirit. But in Proverbs, it says, by wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasure. What is wisdom? What is understanding? And what is knowledge? Now, how does it help you when it comes to marriage? Knowledge is putting facts together. Putting facts together. Understanding what exactly marriage is about. Understanding what family is about. Wisdom is application of that knowledge into practical life. And understanding is the skill to respond with insight. So we will preface this talk with understanding the moral platitude these days that we are living in. Until about the 20th century, the entire world lived under a biblical morality. Biblical morality basically meant that there are some things that are right, there are some things that are wrong. I know what is right and I know what is wrong. That is biblical morality. Towards the middle of the 20th century, it changed into something called a non-biblical morality. Non-biblical morality meant there are some things that are right, there are some things that are wrong, but I just do not know what is right and what is wrong. Come the advent of hippism in America, or the John F. Kennedy era, when he became the president, there was this freedom of speech, the feminism that entered in the United States. That actually gave rise to something called a time of immorality. What does immorality basically mean? Immorality basically means that there are certain things that are right, there are certain things that are wrong, but I just do not care. If everybody thought that that is the worst that society could ever get to, we were in for a rude awakening. We moved from there to something called relative morality. Relative morality. The time that we live in is a time of relative morality. What does relative morality mean? My right is not the right of somebody else. I feel that certain things are right, but that doesn't have to be the things that Bibin thinks that those are right in his life. Or the things that Bibin thinks that are wrong doesn't have to be something that Abraham thinks or Priya thinks are right or wrong. So your rights may not be the rights of somebody else. Your wrongs may not be the wrongs of somebody else. So this is where we look at marriage and parenting and we say, is it my clicker or?
I don't think so.
Okay. So if it is something that we, when we look at marriage, when we look at parenting, when we look at all these institutions, we do not have something that the entire society accepts as absolute. So that is our biggest dilemma these days. You might have certain people who look at marriage in one way, and certain other people look at marriage another way. What's your name? Christy. So when Christy was sitting with Priya, now when we talked about married couples, so we know that Christy and Priya are not married couples. But if we were in a different setting, if we were in a secular setting, and we are here for some kind of a marriage counseling, and it doesn't have to be Christian marriage counseling, it is not completely out of norms in the United States to be thinking that there could be two young women that are sitting there who are married to each other. So that is where we have a problem that we are facing. Now, about 5 years ago, the census of the United States, when was the census taken? 2011? 2010, 6 years ago. Right, it's about 5.5, 6 years ago, the census was taken. One thing that majorly changed in the census of the United States is that families fell under 50% in the US. For the first time in the history of US, the number of families in the US fell under 50%. What does that mean? Living together increased. Single parent families increased, or the definition of families as we know has changed. And that is one of the major secular trends that have changed these days that we live in. And also, 1 out of 2 marriages in America fails. 1 out of 2 marriages. So if 2 marriages take place in and around you guys, then 1 out of 2 marriages do fail. Everything, virtual pleasures, pornography, living together, people indulging in premarital sex, and people indulging in sexual relations outside of marriage, all of them have been on the upswing by about 35%. That is the times that we live in. So our jobs become all the more difficult when we face a generation that is actually do not have an absolute definition of marriage is. And you might be wondering, you might be saying, why are you talking to us about this? Because we know the sanctity of marriage. We know what marriage is about. Do you know that there were at least 3 weddings that were celebrated, and that was very with pomp and fare that was held in the United States between 2 women in our community in 2015. Have you heard about that? And at least one of them was the daughter of a pastor, and a Malayali pastor. And the other one, the partner that she got married to was a Hindu woman that was a graduate of the Columbia School of Social Work in New York. And there's at least one wedding video that is actually floating in YouTube these days that was held in New York between 2 Christian Malayali men. So now if you think of why we are looking at this and saying that we have a moral dilemma, it is actually happening within our community. It is about 20 years ago when my brother-in-law and I talked about the possibility of having to, you can put that whole slide up. So the possibility of having to start a Christian counseling, a marriage counseling program within our community. Most of the pastors and the priests in our community basically shut us down by saying that there is no need for this because we don't have problems in our community. At that time, the only issue that we were facing was our young men and young women dating other young men or young women or going outside of arranged marriage. Now, 20 years later, our prayer is not that our young men and young women will marry the people that we choose, but our prayer is that they will marry Christian men and Christian women. Our prayer is that they will actually marry people within our community. Our prayer is now that at least a man would marry a woman and a woman would marry a man. So it has come down to that level, that the fear level has increased in our community to that point. So that is where we basically talk about these issues and we say marriage has been redefined. It is these 4 pictures I have actually taken from the K-12 curriculum. The K-12 curriculum is a curriculum that is offered to our children in our schools, and these 4 pictures are in the K-12 curriculum. What does it mean? Our children between the ages of 5 and 10 are being pitchforked into knowing that there is marriage redefined when 2 men can walk hand in hand, and there is 2 men can adopt a child and say that these are your dads, or that is your dad and that is your mom, or it is okay to say Heather has 2 mommies and she does not have a daddy and a mommy. So that's where we actually bring up our children. So the design of marriage is a first institution on the face of the earth. Every institution in the face of the earth followed later. But the first institution that God instituted is marriage. Now, what makes a marriage strong? Nick Stennis says, commitment to the family, spending time together, having good family communication, expressing appreciation to each other, having a spiritual commitment, able to solve problems in a crisis. I'll come back to this later. I just want to put this as an introduction. That makes a family strong. Now, purpose of marriage and family, secular research findings say that sex, companionship, love, to provide a home for children, social acceptance, economic advantage and security. If you ask anybody, any Tom, Dick and Harry that is in this world and ask him why you get married. I get married for sex. I get married for companionship. I get married for a financial advantage because I can file jointly when I file my taxes. I can get married because I can have social acceptance, or I can just have security in having marriage. Now, let's move that over to our traditional South Asian setting. So the traditional South Asian settings basically has 2 sets of marriage. One is the traditional view or the arranged view, except for you guys. Because you went outside of this norm. Now, I'm going to prove to you with what is right and what is wrong. Which one is the most preferred way? Do everybody who actually got married is an arranged marriage continue to believe that arranged marriage is the only way to go as far as marriage is concerned? Is there anybody? If we were to be given a different choice now, would you have done it differently? You can have your spouse leave and answer me that question. So, it was a parental choice. It is a parental choice. So it was a contract between 2 families, more than a contract between 2 individuals. It became a parental choice. That was arranged marriage. So the husband was the breadwinner. The wife was a homemaker. There was well-defined roles. So if there is still utensils in the sink, after the husband came home and the wife went to work, and the wife can work overnight and come back and still find utensils in the sink, because washing utensils became the job of the husband. Because the husband was the breadwinner and the wife was a homemaker. Now, our problem is that we have now migrated to the United States. We still have this mentality that husband has well-defined roles and the wife has well-defined roles. But we forget the fact in the Judeo-Asian, South Asian community, the husband was a breadwinner and the wife was a homemaker. What does it mean? The husband went out to work and the wife stayed home, and her job was to be a housewife. In most of these Malayalam Indian TV shows, if you ask the woman who comes to a TV show and says, what's your job? And she would say, I'm a housewife. As if like that is a full-time paid job. My husband is a doctor, but I'm a housewife. Housewife is not a job, but somehow South Asian women think that that is a full-time job. We migrated to the United States. What changed? Our wives became breadwinners too. Or they became primary breadwinners as well. Now, our mentality did not change, whereby we did not change, men did not have changed our roles in, hey, I can have the utensils washed as well, because my wife is not only a homemaker, but she is now also a breadwinner. So my roles need to change as well. So one of the biggest problems, I say this all the time as a joke, that we drive a 2016 model Lexus or a Cadillac, but we still have a 1972 mind. We live in 2015 model homes. We drive 2015 model cars. We want all the new gadgets that this world can offer. But our mindset is still the 1972 or the 1975 when we got married or when we were born. So specific responsibilities, norm formed by the society, family is a focus, interference from the in-laws causing friction. High stigma towards divorce, highly secretive about frictions. Now, we call it arranged marriage. And the second one is a modern marriage. For some reason, the Indian folks or the South Asian folks call it the love marriage. I don't know why we came up with the concept love marriage, because every marriage is supposed to be a love marriage. You know, either if you loved before marriage or you love from the time of marriage, every marriage has to be a love marriage. But we call it a love marriage. But it now changed from a contract between two families to a contract between two individuals. That is what the change was. Now, the most common form of contemporary marriage reflects all the social changes of today. Higher separation rate, higher divorce rate. Do you know why? In the old arranged marriage system, people became very secretive about their frictions. Now, if Shirley and Renji are having problems in their marriage and they have an arranged marriage system, they go to a traditional Malayali church, they are going to be very secretive about the friction that is in them. So they are going to put up with each other with the frictions that they have, because they do not want the stigma of people saying that they have problems in their marriage to go out to people. 99% of the people who are married do have problems in their marriage life. 99% of the people who are married do have problems in their marriage life. Only 1% say that they do not have problems in their marriage life. Who do you know who they are? They're liars. They are liars. That 1% that they say that they do not have problems in their marriage life are liars. Because every marriage has its own problem. It is two different backgrounds, two different individuals, two different upbringings, two different family backgrounds, faith backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. These two people are now being joined together and say, you are now one. It's not an easy mix. It's almost like water and kerosene. You know, it is not going to be something where water mixes with milk and it just continues to blend as if like nothing has happened as far as that mixture is concerned. So, we label, South Asians label the love marriage system as a Western view. And their career-oriented spouses, divorces by mutual consent. Which of these two is the better choice? For those of you who are married, those of you are about to be married, for those of you who are working with people in terms of helping them with their marriage issue, which of these two is the right choice? You just got married, right? How many months ago?
It was January 15th.
It was an arranged marriage?
It was arranged.
Right.
Came over in November.
Okay, all right. So which of these two is right? First one, arranged marriage, and you stick by it?
Stick by it.
And you will not go with the second one?
No.
And you will, and why?
There's just there's no risk involved. It's so easy to separate if you do the second one. At least if you do the first one, you have many parties involved. There's a greater chance that you realize that other individuals are involved. It's just not two people. So I would say the partner is completely that.
Good answer. Anybody else? What if I say both are wrong? Bivin, what would you say?
Then we are in trouble. Both are right and wrong. Right?
Both are right and wrong.
Right. It depends. So when I say it's a love marriage, on her part it was arranged marriage. It was, and I did not go out dating and all that.
Mhm.
That did not happen. I just went and told her, I think I can marry you. That was the first conversation that I had. I told her, go and talk to your parents. So their parents talked to my parents, and that's how we got married. So there is a risk involved, but then there is risk in arranged marriage as well. So I'm not able to decide which one is better.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, good answer, because both are very good answers. But I want to say that neither of these two are biblical in its own way. We cannot say neither an arranged marriage nor a love marriage are completely correct on their own way, because it is both say it is a contract either between two families or it is a contract between two people, and marriage is not a contract. That's the biggest problem. What is the difference between a contract and a covenant? Marriage is a covenant and marriage is not a contract. What is the difference between a contract and a covenant? A contract can be breached by one person when the other person does not meet the obligations of the contract. There are some, when I buy a house, there is a contract that we put. They say that the seller has to sell the house to me in such and such a way. And he has to sell it to me at such and such a date. He has to meet certain criteria. And when I do my engineering inspection, when I do my bank inspection, when I go through my walkthrough, if any of those things that are mentioned in the contract are not being met, I have the legal right to walk out of the contract. And that is the contract. Whether it's an arranged marriage or a love marriage, when it is a contract between either two families or between two individuals, you basically have the legal right to walk out. And marriage is not a contract. Marriage is a covenant. Covenant basically means that whether you are faithful or not, whether you meet the obligations or not, you're basically willing to continue in that relationship. That is our covenant. I will get into this a little later in more detail, but that is why I do not say that either arranged or modern is right in its own way. So why was God creating marriage? God said it is not good for man to be alone. So what was the primary purpose for which God said there needs to be a marriage? For companionship. Because he looked at the loneliness of man and he said, it is not good for man to be alone. I want to create someone to be a companion. And then he said, multiply, be fruitful, for procreation, for sexual fulfillment. God instituted it to keep a moral equilibrium. Apostles upheld it. Early church practiced it. It is a Judeo-Christian view. It is a God-centered view. It is a life-giving view. It is a love-giving view. This biblical view is a God's choice, and it is this one. The definition that we use from the surveys that we did. This is our coined definition. Marriage is a heterosexual covenant between one man and one woman, for companionship and for procreation, sealed by a public ceremony, for a lifelong relationship. I've very much bolded some of the words that are very important. Heterosexual, one man and one woman, consummated in sexual union, for companionship and procreation, sealed by a public ceremony, for a lifelong relationship. So now, anything that is done with this in mind is a biblical marriage. Now, I will come to the choice part later, but I want to say that the arranged marriage or the love marriage that we call it is not perfect or are not perfect in themselves. Now, when God said there has to be a leaving and a cleaving, the biblical basis of marriage is severance, permanence, unity, and intimacy. Severance, permanence, unity, and intimacy. What does severance mean? Severance means man shall leave his father and mother. Now, in the arranged marriage system, it is mostly done by the families, so there is continued obligation back to the parents. There is interference from the in-laws. Do you still live with your parents? No, you moved out immediately after marriage? Oh, okay. So you don't live with them. Okay. Not a single day after marriage?
Maybe 1 month or 2.
1 month or so? Okay. So now, when we live in the United States, we are a little bit more open to that. But severance primarily mean that God said, therefore, this reason. What reason? For companionship, for procreation, for a lifelong relationship, man shall leave his father and mother. It doesn't mean that, I don't want to have anything to do with my father and mother anymore. I have nothing to do with them anymore. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to see them. I'm not going to have anything to do with them. That is not what it means by severance. What it means by severance is that now my allegiance, my obligations, my commitment is no longer to my father and my mother. My allegiance, my obligations, my responsibilities, my commitment, my love is towards the man that I married, towards the woman that I married. That is severance. Now, that severance is now for a permanence. And that permanence is he will cleave to his wife. What does the word cleave mean? Stick. That's the word. The word is he will stick to his wife. Join. More than join. It is almost like stick. It's like a glue that is bonding it together. So it is plucking you out from your relationship, from your father and your mother, and then gluing you back into your relationship with somebody else. So now, what type of marriage is good? That is what I'm trying to prove. A marriage that has severance, that has permanence, and then there is unity. They shall become one flesh. Unity in what? Unity in? You usually think of this unity as far as two bodies coming together, or sexual unity only. It is not what God intended. Now, it is unity in every aspect of your life. So, unity, they shall become one flesh. It means, see, when your weaknesses are exposed, when the two bodies come together, when your weaknesses are exposed, that is when the sexual union between a man and a woman takes place. Which means there is no holds barred. Where do you walk around naked? Where would you be willing? Yeah, that's exactly. Where would you be comfortable? In your birthday clothes? In the privacy of primarily in the bathroom, right? And or in your bedroom. Those are the two places that you would be. And no place else would you be comfortable being naked. So what it means is that when you have to put yourself completely naked, that is when you may basically have a complete understanding that you're secure in that area. When you know that, hey, nobody else is there, all the drapes are down, lights are off, I'm in this room, nobody's going to come inside, I have the key to this room by myself, and nobody's going to walk inside, I have no problem taking my clothes off. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it because I do not feel secure about it. So when God says severance, permanence, those two will have to take place first. The man has already left his